Okay, so it's been a minute since I made a sympathy for some asshole video. To be honest, I found listening to celebrity interviews and researching their contrived lives to be better suited to breaking the spirit of POWs than entertaining myself on a day off. So I moved away from that type of video. But sometimes you have a thought to share with the group, and this one fits with my Sympathy for Stupidity playlist. The sequel to 2019's The Joker, written and directed by Todd Phillips, dropped a few months back where it more or less broke even at the box office, but got murdered in reviews by audiences, media outlets, YouTubers, and basically everyone. Lady Gaga recently broke her silence on the overwhelmingly negative response to the film, and her comments showed why she's a megastar, and most Hollywood entertainers these days are schmucks. This video explains why and gives a context for The Joker Folie à Deux that maybe allows potential viewers to make a more informed decision as to whether or not they should check it out. I'm not doing a film review breaking down this movie. Most of the videos on my channel assume you've watched The Bastard before you've come to me, so I'm not giving away anything you don't already know. But in this video, I'm assuming you haven't seen the movie, so I'm going to keep away from specific plot spoilers. So to begin, we need to understand what the first Joker movie was from my point of view. That movie was promoted as an origin story for Batman's arch-nemesis, the Joker, with the implication being Joaquin Phoenix was taking Heath Ledger's place for a backstory to Christopher Nolan's Joker, as opposed to the Jared Leto damaged Joker who was floating around the fringes of the DCEU. My argument at the time was that it was not that thing in any meaningful way. When a performer on stage or screen puts on a costume, it's only a contributing element to the act of portraying a character. Whereas on Halloween, people put on costumes for fun while doing their own thing. They aren't fully embracing the role of a character, they're just having some fun. Todd Phillips' The Joker was very clearly a Halloween costume party, not a movie looking to create some version of the Detective Comics world of Batman or any of the characters therein. It was a think piece on mental health and the dynamic between society and unwell individuals with comic book window dressing, not a comic book movie. Todd Phillips has a body of work that consists primarily of comedy films, and he's bitch-moaned on more than one occasion that he's not able to make adult comedies anymore since 30 million people on Twitter will complain, which would leave about 7 billion and 970 million people not crying on Twitter to market to, since social media is a noisy group in a very small room that's easy to ignore, and the overwhelming majority of people do. I'm only speculating here, but it looks to me like he was petulant about not being able to get investors to fund a comedy project, wrote a think piece on mental health that he couldn't get funding for either, and since there was interest from Warner Brothers Discovery in making a comic book superhero movie, he decided to hijack that project in order to do his own thing on mental health with the superficial window dressing of the DC Comics IP. I didn't approve of what I perceived to be the insincerity of the project, although one can judge intention and performance by different measures, and I thought Phillips' ruminations on mental health and the performance of the actors were interesting enough. But general audiences loved The Joker, and WB Discovery loved that Phillips turned $55 million into $1.1 billion. So the push was there to make a sequel that would continue the story, develop the characters, and introduce some new ones, like, Batman, deepen the world building, and stick to similar themes for continuity, and everyone gets to laugh their way to the bank. But from my vantage point, Phillips had no interest in comic book superhero movies to begin with. So a sequel of the type the fans hoped to see, building up a more gritty world of DC superheroes, held no appeal. But money talks, so why not hijack the genre a second time for a more self-indulgent thematic message? Which brings us to what The Joker Folie à Deux actually is. It's a think piece on how the comic book movie genre is shallow and its fans are shit human beings. It's framed as a character study about an individual with mental health issues, facing the consequences of trying to behave as though he was living in a superhero fantasy world rather than the real world. But that's just a vehicle to deliver the message. It's a concept that's similar to the long-standing argument that movie audiences' fascination with violent spectacle is proof that people are trash, and high-minded artistic performers are forced to lower themselves to cater to the petty superficiality of their douchebag audiences. The movie is a very meta fuck you to people who enjoy comic book movies. It does this with a good amount of thoughtfulness as compared to the miniseries She-Hulk, which was like a bull in a china shop in its quest to make sure superhero movie fans understood how much the writers hated them. But regardless of how clever or artistic the presentation may be, at its core it's a project that takes the only audience that is going to pay to see a movie of this type and judges, antagonizes, and insults them. Which raises the question of who the actual intended audience was. If you and I are in a room and you make a humiliating joke at my expense, I won't like it, but I'm going to assume it's to impress the other people in the room, so I'll get it. And plot my revenge, you motherfucker. But if you and I are alone in a room and you make a humiliating joke at my expense, I'm going to be a bit more perplexed as to your intentions. It may be that Todd Phillips is petulant and sulky that he couldn't get other people to invest their money in the things he wanted to do, so he entertained himself at the expense of the fans of the first Joker, which would make the intended audience just himself. That's possible. But why would WB Discovery greenlight something like that? Supposedly they're in the business of making money, and spending $200 million to make a movie suggests an expectation of greater returns than one self-satisfied writer-director. It could be that they're complete idiots and didn't comprehend Phillips wasn't making the kind of sequel fans were hoping to see. They may have assumed if the same writer, director, and lead actor were involved, it had to be the same as the first movie. That kind of mentality. They're simple enough folk for that to be possible. Or maybe they understood that what he was up to was entirely self-indulgent, but didn't care. WB Discovery had great success brazenly lying about the intentions of the Barbie movie, so they might have just figured, hey, audiences are stupid, and we can lie to them again about what this movie is about, and they'll have no idea. That's also possible. I think Phillips' principal goal was to make a meta-commentary on both the genre and a core audience that he views with a condescending eye. So who might share that attitude? Well, the history of film has always been a push and pull between business and art. You can point to Hollywood's studio system era as an example of the scale tipping too far towards the business side, as the movies that were churned out between 1927 and 1948 resembled a cookie-cutter assembly line of predictability. You can also point to Europe's approach to film during the same time period as an example of the scale tipping too far towards the artistic side, with movies like An Andalusian Dog showcasing surrealism in France and Metropolis showcasing expressionism in Germany that were a joy to artistic intellectuals, but left general audiences scratching their heads. I'd say the Joker Folie à Deux would have an appeal to the aloof artistic intellectual type, whose movie preferences are independent films. Someone that doesn't just look upon superhero movies with disdain, but sees all commercial films as some lowbrow schlock for mouth-breathing imbeciles. Where I grew up, there was a single-screen indie film theater just down the road, and a few towns over, a mall with a movie theater. The mall had the Hollywood productions, the single screen had indie films, which were typically someone's self-referential story about how they came to terms with their sexuality, or why they should be applauded for overcoming the hardships of their divorce. Patrons of each theater were rarely to be found sharing the same space, to the benefit of both, and there wasn't any confusion about what you would expect to find at each theater. Phillips' first Joker was essentially an independent film of personal self-expression on mental health, costumed as a commercial film about comic book characters. The sequel is essentially an independent film with a bit more artistic license on mental health that wants fans of superhero movies to know they're pathetic, costumed as a commercial film about comic book characters. Which is a pretty roundabout way of reaching the true intended audience if that's the case. Was the plan to lie to the people who enjoyed the first Joker, leading them to believe they would get a comic book superhero movie, sucker them back into the $30 a seat theater, slap them in the face with the product, and when they reacted with frustration and disappointment, the secondary audience of aloof intellectual artist types would comprehend a genre they despised was being taken down. So they'd pony up their $30 a seat, and the $200 million project would then turn a tidy profit. The more complex a machine, the less reliable it becomes, so if that was the plan, obviously it had no chance of success. But who knows? When it comes to anyone's intentions on anything, I'm only reading tea leaves, of course. But if I'm anywhere close to the mark that Phillips decided to hijack a commercial project to make an indie film out of petulance and spite, then first off, fuck him. And second of all, the inverse of that approach was always an option. A filmmaker can bankroll their own self-indulgent indie project to make whatever they so desire. If Phillips wanted to do comedy, a mental health think piece, or any other goddamn thing, he could have put up his own money and done it. Given the returns of his past projects, he has more than enough finances to do that very thing. But that's the rub with people in the entertainment industry. They want to do what they want to do, but not gamble their own money on it being a commercial success or failure. But anyway, you have my prescription on what audience is best suited to this film. Although the question still remains, why did I watch the thing? Since I'm not an artsy intellectual type, or a fresh-faced sucker who stumbled into it expecting to see anything that related to a comic book superhero movie. The answer to that brings us back to Lady Gaga's response to the backlash against Joker Folie à Deux. Now, in the interest of full disclosure, I'll admit that I'm inclined towards agreement with Lady Gaga on most anything she has to say. If she told me to put on the gimp suit, my reaction would be to consult the interweb as to whether gimp suits cause undue chafing, set aside a few coins for trauma therapy, and pray to the gods of every established religion my family and friends never learn of whatever happens next. But as a bullshit fake doctor, it's observational logic that I bring to the table. And when a person makes a good point, it doesn't matter if I'm inclined towards them or not. It just happens to be so in this case. In a recent interview with Elle magazine, Lady Gaga commented that people just sometimes don't like something. It's that simple. And I think to be an artist, you have to be willing for people to sometimes not like it. And you keep going, even if something didn't connect in the way that you intended. That's a great response. First off, it acknowledges the negative reaction of the audience. She doesn't try to manufacture some roundabout way that the film may look like a failure, but it's actually a success. Like She-Hulk's supposed popularity on obscure streaming platforms, The Acolyte's promotion of total minutes viewed, or The Rings of Power's Emmy nominations, which are all bullshit ways of hiding from the fact that those shows were spectacular failures. She's also implying there's nothing wrong with not liking the movie, which validates the feelings of the audience. There isn't a direct or indirect implication that if you don't like it, you're probably racist, homophobic, misogynistic, or have some bad faith personal agenda, which as a film critic is refreshing. She's also showing what it means to have positive self-esteem. As a performer, you do what you do to the best of your abilities, and some you win and some you lose. It's okay either way if you did your level best. She isn't claiming victim status or trying to shame people into blowing smoke up her ass, nor is she ducking personal responsibility for her part in the production. Although, if she told me to put on the gimp suit and blow smoke up her ass, please just don't tell my parents. Just give me that much. Just please. She-Hulk writer and co-star Jamila Jamil. Is that really her name? A bit like Pete Peterson or John Johnson, isn't it? No offense to those boys. I guess the parents were about as creative as their daughter. Anyway, that dunce ran to Twitter while her show was making its Hindenburg-esque crash of the turf to make sure everyone knew that she had fun, got paid, and doesn't give a fuck about anything else. The brat from the Marvels movie basically said the same thing while promoting her film. Hey, I just show up to have fun and get paid. What do I care if the people who invested in the project lose their shirt or audiences dislike the film? Which is true. Actors are more or less meat puppets that show up to the set with help from their assistants and do whatever the fuck they're told. But vocalizing that fact doesn't promote the film or engage with the audience in a productive way. It just tries to protect a fragile ego from criticism. A confident person can try, fail, shrug, and say, well, okay, back to the drawing board. That didn't go well, but we're far from done here. On the other hand, a person with an absence of genuine self-assurance is stuck forever pretending they didn't fail, or it was all someone else's fault, or they're the victim of others' bad intentions, or they just don't even care, so fuck off. I appreciated that Lady Gaga made a response to a swing and miss befitting a successful adult who can take the L and not turn into a child, so I watched the movie. And it wasn't for me, though I didn't hate it by any means. Personally, I like comic book superhero movies when they're serious drama, not wackadoodle comedy, or in this case, some kind of avant-garde, artsy meta-satire patronizing the genre and its fans. But that's just me, to each their own. If Phillips and WB Discovery had been explicit with the true intentions of the film, maybe there wouldn't have been such a disconnect with the audience. Or, since sequels are often a thank you to the fans because of the support they gave to the first production, maybe don't make a sequel if you're making it for yourself instead of the fans there, Todd. I have to admit this one is kind of a W for me. If people accept that the two Joker movies have fuck all to do with the DC Comics IP, like I've been saying for the past 5 years, they can maybe enjoy the movie for what it is. Or if they don't want to give me my I told you so moment and keep trying to reconcile how it really is some kind of version of Batman's fictional world, since WB Discovery says so, and corporate America would never lie to me, well, good luck with that, and thanks for the laugh. Regardless, I hope anyone who subscribed to my channel expecting more Sympathy for videos doesn't feel too neglected, assuming they haven't already unsubscribed. I do prefer analyzing movies and shows to making speculations as to the intentions of dummies I hope to never meet, so I can't make an ironclad promise to add to this playlist in the future, but who knows, I don't know. If the theme of criticizing public fascination of violent spectacle through the medium of film appeals to you, but you don't want to be deliberately antagonized like Phillips opted to do with the Joker Folie à Deux, my prescription would be Oliver Stone's Natural Born Killers or Martin Scorsese's Raging Bull. Or if mental health and the struggle to accept personal responsibility is more your thematic jam, David Fincher's Fight Club works. Anyway, that's my thought for the day. Like what you like, don't what you don't. It's all your call, Kemosabe. Take it easy, everyone.